Last night, we told you how the faltering efforts of the U.S. to stem the crisis in West Asia are leading some of its allies to pivot towards its arch-enemy, Iran. And tonight, we have more evidence of America's failed diplomacy in the region. Today, Russian state-owned media reported that Hamas plans to release 2 hostages who are Russian citizens as part of the first hostage deal. Now, remember, the U.S. has pushed for a ceasefire and a hostage deal for months now, but has not succeeded in actually reaching an agreement. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in fact, has made several trips to West Asia this year without managing to stem the conflict. So the fact that Hamas is willing to release Russian hostages first raises a very big question. Does this mean that Russian diplomacy has achieved something that the Americans, despite their efforts and publicity, have not? Here's what we know. Reports say that the Hamas has said that 2 Israeli hostages, who are dual Russian citizens, will be among the first to be released during an eventual hostage deal. How do we know that? A Hamas Politburo member, Musa Abu Marzouk, told Russia's RIA state news agency after talks with Russian Deputy Foreign Minister in Moscow that the release of the 2 Russian hostages would be a priority. The Hamas member said that one of the hostages, Alexander Trufanov, is being held by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which has released 2 propaganda videos of him, by the way. He identified Trufanov as an Israeli officer and Herkin as a former soldier. Here's what else we know about the hostages in question. 30-year-old Trufanov is an engineer employed at Annapurna Labs, an Israeli microelectronics company purchased by Amazon. He was kidnapped on October 7, along with his mother, Yelena, grandmother, Irina Tati, and girlfriend, Sapir Cohen. All of them were released in a hostage deal in late November. In fact, his father, Vitaly Trufanov, was murdered on October 7 in the Hamas attack. And the other is Maxim Herkin. He is 35 years old. He was kidnapped from the Supernova Desert Rave on October 7. Hamas member Abu Marzouk claims that Herkin's family secured him a Russian passport after he was captured. And they did that in a bid to push for his release. And now their release would, of course, only be as part of a ceasefire deal and an exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Just to be clear here, no hostage deal has been struck yet. The Biden administration's year-long effort to mediate a ceasefire deal in Gaza and contain the violence in Lebanon has failed. The U.S. has also struggled to convince the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to de-escalate the situation. Earlier this week itself, on Tuesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed in Israel for his 11th trip to the region in a year. He came to Israel to take advantage of the killing of Hamas leader and October 7 architect Yahya Sinwar and push a ceasefire in Gaza. The American officials, however, are only tempering expectations as Washington's calls for calm fall on deaf ears. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to push ahead with the wars in Gaza and Lebanon. In Gaza, Israel has intensified the military offensive in the northern part of the enclave in recent weeks. They are saying that there is a Hamas resurgence, but health officials warn that the area is already at a breaking point, with medicine, food, fuel, all in short supply. Residents, many of whom had been previously displaced, are now having to flee again after military evacuation orders. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Israeli forces are continuing the ground raids on Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. And in the last 24 hours, the IDF said that it has struck more than 160 Hezbollah targets, including launchers and infrastructure, killing 20 Hezbollah members. And on Wednesday, Israel attacked Beirut's southern suburbs in one of the most violent attacks in the area since the war started. Israel launched 17 airstrikes over a span of few hours. Lebanese authorities said at least 1 person was killed, 5 injured in the strikes. But the Iran-backed militant group appears undeterred by weeks of heavy Israeli bombardment. On Wednesday, Hezbollah also fired about 135 projectiles into Israel from Lebanon. Speaking to his Israeli counterpart on Wednesday, the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin expressed concern about the reports of Israeli strikes against the Lebanese armed forces. He stressed on the importance of taking steps to ensure the safety of both the Lebanese army and the UN peacekeepers. But you see, that's just rhetoric. Until a ceasefire can actually be reached, death and destruction will only continue to haunt the region. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.